Yeah, I think there was, especially even when making the book, I think as the years dragged on, right, it took roughly 8 years to make the book. Having kids actually prolonged that time frame. So it was just this weight building on my shoulders, and it's just this added stress, right? And so now that the book's done, I'm just like relieved that I was able to just get the book done. So anything else now is just gravy.
Please welcome Brian Sum, a concept art legend with over 20 years of experience in the entertainment industry. From working on iconic projects like the Mass Effect series and more, Brian is an extremely passionate and prolific creative with a unique flair and style. Brian's creativity has also been manifesting itself in delicious sci-fi goodness, in his very own sprawling universe, Aftermarket. The first taste of which is an art book that's available for purchase right now. And in this episode, we get a close look at how this endeavour panned out, and the journey Brian went on after combining his creativity and entrepreneurialism. We also get to hear why it was important for him to learn as much as he could about every aspect of this, VHS tapes, and what the future holds for himself and Aftermarket, plus much more. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Learn Squared podcast, and I'm delighted to welcome a very special guest today, Brian Sum. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks for having me.
How is it going? It's the start of the year. How was last year, and what are you looking forward to as the year goes on? Like, do you plan these kind of things, or are you kind of like go with the flow kind of person?
Yeah, more a little bit of both. I think a lot of planning involved, but also like realizing that you can't really plan everything in your life.
Yeah.
So kind of going with the flow as well. Last year was pretty crazy. I launched my art book, the Aftermarket art book. And so a lot of stuff went on last year where just trying to set up everything. Of course, making the art, but also putting the book together. A lot of like non-art related stuff
Right.
that I had to learn, and it was a good experience, but also really stressful. So,
Mm.
but and like we mentioned before, juggling with two kids, two little boys at the same time. Kind of adds to the stress and the lack of time that you
Yes.
have to in order to do things. So it's yeah, it was a productive year last year, and stressful, but it was rewarding at the same time. So looking forward to the new year.
Awesome. I mean, like, yeah, a lot to unpack there, especially aftermarket. But I guess before we dive into that, I'd be grateful if you could give the audience, especially, I'm sure a lot of people know who you are. Amazing body of work, amazing art and identity as an artist, which we can get into a little bit later as well. But I think that's very important to point out for yourself. Like, you definitely stand out as an artist, not just through your skill, but through the way you make your art as well. But there's always like students, there's always new people, someone completely fresh to this realm in general. So with that said, if you wouldn't mind giving people a little intro into what you do and who you are.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Brian Sum. I'm a concept artist. I guess it's been over around 20 years now. I started in
Wow.
the industry. But yeah, just like many of our peers, working in the industry, film and games industry for a few years,
Mm-hmm.
learning the craft. And I guess over the years, I've kind of steered towards things that I really am passionate about.
Mm.
And so that kind of evolved into kind of like hard surface design, and a lot of the artwork that I post on social media is a lot of my personal work, which is kind of mech art related, 2D drawings, and also just trying to blend all the things that I'm inspired by. So a
Mm.
lot of like graphic design, you'll see that a lot of my work is very colorful. I like to kind of play with color, play with graphic kind of themes. So yeah, I think that's kind of my niche that I like to steer towards. I've been kind of fortunate enough to kind of be able to choose what type of projects I work on
Hmm.
lately. So I've been kind of decided to kind of focus on more of the hard surface kind of
Hmm.
design, which is not limited to mech design. I enjoy like architecture as well, and
Mm.
anything like design related. So like spaceships, sci-fi, mostly sci-fi related stuff. But yeah, I enjoy architecture as well.
Amazing. Um, how did you get into the industry? Was this something that you always wanted to do, or was it something that you fell into?
Um, yeah, it's weird because when I decided to get into art, it was way back, even before there were any kind of like uh, Instagram or Facebook. Like, there's no such thing as kind of like social media presence when I
Hmm.
was kind of getting out of high school, and so not even concept art like that hasn't even been
Mm.
like really defined as an industry before. Yeah, I grew up, I guess, watching Star Wars, and when I came out of high school, I actually decided, yeah, I love doing art. I love drawing. So what are those industries? So it was really about animation,
Hmm.
or like comic art.
Right.
Um, and also, I guess, graphic design and illustration. Like those are kind of like the three areas that I kind of was thinking about
Hmm.
getting into. And ultimately, I decided to go into an illustration and graphic design program
Mm.
locally in my hometown in Vancouver, Canada. Yeah, and oddly enough, in the program, I you could either branch off into illustration or graphic design,
Hmm.
and I actually decided to major in graphic design, and shortly after, kind of worked a year in web page design,
Right.
so web development. So yeah, I realized that that definitely was not what I wanted to do, and yeah, it just kind of takes some time sometimes to really know what you don't like to really
Mm.
know what you do like, right? Um, so after that, I went back to school and studied computer animation. And there was this local school, Vancouver Film School, that I attended. And yeah, just at that point wanted to get into video games. So
Hmm.
yeah, and that's kind of after that. I had a demo reel. Back then, it was like all VHS tapes that you had to
Oh
send to
wow.
companies.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Sick.
Yeah, it was weird because I remember my one of my teachers even saying like, you need a VHS tape. Like,
Yeah.
don't think about like websites. And at that time, like the web was booming, and you could easily kind of have your own website. And one of my teachers said, "Yeah, the most important thing is your VHS tape." And I thought that was weird because it's like, why wouldn't
Yeah.
you just post it on your website like nowadays, right? So,
Yeah.
and then yeah, that times have changed where now you can just upload anything.
Yeah. I mean,
So
VHS. Though, I don't know. Like, I just remember as a kid, that was whenever you saw one, that usually meant something cool on it. Like, on your own recordings or films or whatever. Obviously, this is like pre DVD era and then pre whatever it is now era. Um, so did you have to like do like a bunch of copies and just ship them out? Like, did you have a constant like
yeah,
supply of
yeah.
VHSs with your name on it?
Yeah. I remember I have this photo from back then where I had a stack of VHS
Sick.
tapes, and just had to ship them out everywhere. But oddly enough, at that time, I guess I was lucky because I guess the web was I guess taking off,
Hmm.
and then at that time, yeah, you could have your own personal website, and actually, people saw my demo reel online, and
Mm.
so it got a lot more exposure as well. So
Uh,
um, yeah, so I think it helped a lot rather than the VHS tape.
mm.
I think
Did you get like many gigs or replies from the VHS shipping out, or was it more stuff that, as you just mentioned, that was posted online that really got more responses
Yeah,
to you or generate
honestly, I
leads?
think like back then when I had graduated, like I guess the industry standard was that VHS demo reel, but I think I was reaching that kind of turning point where
Mm-hmm.
companies were starting to look at things online, and like back then, like companies like I think CG Channel and CG Hub were starting to take off then, and I think I got a lot of exposure from CG Channel.
Mm-hmm.
So it got posted on like maybe like the front page or something, and then game companies saw it and just emailed or
Mm-hmm.
reached out. So yeah, I was kind of fortunate enough to um, get a lot of exposure, and I guess
Yeah.
that's kind of like the first taste of what I had for a social media exposure. That like the
Interesting.
benefits of that, right? And,
Yes.
and now it's just commonplace. Like you're not doing yourself a service by keeping quiet and not showing your
Mm.
stuff online, right? So if yeah, like you just get more opportunities just by exposing yourself.
Cool. So it's almost like an organic exposure to marketing yourself as an artist and just I guess promoting yourself without really like looking at it in a professional way, I guess. Like normally people would study that and kind of do it, and you're just kind of doing it organically, right?
Yeah. I think there's like a science to it now, right? People
Mm.
are looking at like just like the hits and the counts, and then like have this kind of formula. But yeah, to me, I'm still quite organic. Like I guess the general thought is just put your stuff out there, and
Yes.
good things will happen, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I really don't know about the technical side of that, the algorithms and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
So
Have you experienced that where you've also like? Because I guess one interesting thing about this is, as you showed back then, it was like a turning point where, like, literally, like, visually, like, it was different mediums from this physical medium to this digital medium that's like accessed in different ways, but it's on well, it is the same work, and the point was just to get the work seen. And obviously, like throughout, then you've had social media get introduced and then become this thing that's basically at the center of the world. And then now there's all that different changes, different trends, and so on. I'm sure there's people out there like thinking, I guess, like in that same kind of boat now, where it's almost like how you were back then, where you were told to do VHS, yet you kind of did both and then switched to the more digital side of things. Um, what is like, I guess, the message you'd like to tell those people who are either on the fence without what to do or holding back, thinking they need to have a better strategy and all that kind of stuff? I know you kind of mentioned it, you've kind of answered that a little bit with some of the points you've made. But to those people who are, yeah, like a bit apprehensive about showing their work or getting themselves out there, what would you say to them?
um, yeah, it's kind of a double edged sword because like I've been taught always show your best work, or what's that saying, like if an artist is only as good as their worst piece or something like that,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
But I don't know, there's different ways of thinking about that, because if you're maybe just starting out as a student, I think that's the best way to learn as well, just
Mm-hmm.
to just get feedback, I guess, put your stuff out there, and it's kind of like an an honest marker of where you're at, I guess. And
Yes.
so I think there's no harm in just getting it out there. But at the same time, if you're wanting to get a job, I guess it's best to not show your worst pieces, I guess.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
maybe like advice is maybe somewhere in the middle ground where try to put the work that you feel is your best work out there, and but don't be so I guess critical of yourself, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
all good, right? Like it's just, and one thing I've realized about social media is that it's constantly changing. People are always uploading new stuff. So do people really look back like people are always looking at the latest pieces, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the other ones just get lost in the pile. So it'll be kind of forgotten, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. And like even with social media as well, like one thing to point out is, yeah, I mean our own work changes. We're always uploading new stuff, but also the priorities of these platforms change as well, where they will immediately change course to promote maybe different type of medium that they want to introduce. Like a few years ago was a case of pushing video or whatever. So they were like, there's all they have their own motives as well. Um, and like you said, like I guess if you just kind of focus on what it is you want to do and putting that out there the best way that you can, that is definitely, in my opinion, as well, the best strategy. Now, in terms of your relationship with social media and putting your work out there, how would you describe it or sum it up at this moment? Like, do you find it as a positive thing for you or a negative thing or something where it's just like it's part of the process and you almost have like no relationship with it?
Yeah. I think kind of like it's a little bit of everything. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot of work to I guess post your stuff. I guess I'm naturally kind of like not very social, but I realize the
Mm-hmm.
benefits of having a social media presence. So I do it out of necessity, just
Mm-hmm.
to kind of, I guess, career wise. Um, but there are people out there that I think it's just ingrained in them. Just like they do it, they love posting, and they'll post maybe 2 3 times a day, and it's
Mm-hmm.
ingrained in their kind of daily habits and daily life. And for me, I'm just kind of struggling with it, but also
Mm-hmm.
realizing that it's become a habit for me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I'm kind of antisocial in a lot of ways, but I
Same.
do
I'm the
it.
same. Yeah.
Yeah, I just do it. Just yeah, just to maybe promote my work, and I've had a lot of kind of opportunities because of it. So
Interesting.
but it's also fun. Like I don't take it too seriously in the sense
Yes.
that if I do have a piece that I like, I mean I'm drawing all the time, I'll post it
Mm-hmm.
and see the reaction. So it's good. But yeah, I do see the negative sides of social media, and I try to kind of strike a balance between
Mm-hmm.
not being on it all the time and kind of balancing my life without social media.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. No, I think that's like a lot of that is. I think a lot of people can relate to that kind of relationship with social media, and I think, like you just touched upon there, I think as an artist, it's definitely a powerful tool just because to get your work out there, right? Like it's if there's any other alternatives which is going to get more eyeballs on it, I don't think there is anything that comes remotely close. Um, and one that really gets like opportunities, for example. But it also sounds like you got like in my opinion, based on what you just said, look, you got like a healthy relationship with it, and it's interesting because especially with social media, almost more so of the last few years as opposed to when it first came out, is the discussion and the discourse around its effect on people and the human brain and what it can do and how it can affect things. And I remember like growing up, obviously brought up pre-internet, but before brought up in front of a TV, and I just remember thinking of like never understanding how people can never not have a TV. And I think there's people now who are growing up in the digital age who are thinking the same, but not as a TV, as like social media, for example. Um, have you ever had any experiences where you've kind of caught yourself or stopped yourself going, I guess, further forward into it because you've seen a negative effect to yourself with social media?
yeah, like I think a juggling. I guess I like to be productive, and I guess there's many times that I've kind of like caught myself where I'm just like scrolling through Instagram or something, and maybe even like checking comments and likes and all that, and then I just kind of catch myself sometimes like, what am I doing? Like this is
Mm,
this is kind of like not a good use of my time,
yes,
and,
yes.
and so in that sense, I'm kind of always trying to be aware of like not really kind of diving down that rabbit hole of just like constantly scrolling and everything. So
Mm,
um, and it's kind of the same thing as TV, I guess. Like too much of it is not good. So just trying to balance that out. I think, um, but at the same time, it's entertaining. There's a lot of like nuggets of cool stuff and inspiration that you can find
Hmm.
on there. So I think it's just a matter of balancing that out.
Cool. You mentioned a bit earlier about the VHS tapes, and every time from now, like, I just keep envisioning the VHS tapes. Again, like just a bit of nostalgia from my end as well. I remember we had like a whole just piles of them stacked up.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm totally dating myself with that VHS tape. It's
oh,
just
no,
like,
oh
yeah,
yeah, I don't
even
know,
when I
like
think back,
yes,
it's like, oh my god, that was like a physical chunk of plastic that you had to
yeah,
send
it's
out.
true, it's true.
Crazy.
Do you still have any copies for yourself? Like part of your
Oh,
little,
that's a
like,
good
little
question. Yeah,
treasure trove?
yeah, actually, do I? I might have just maybe I should have kept one, if anything, right?
I
But
mean,
I
or
don't
you could
know.
make one for aftermarket, I guess, like a little
Yeah,
promotional, like exclusive edition thing.
yeah.
But like with that, obviously, you're making your portfolio at the time to send it out. Um, was that something that you kind of like were told you should do, or you felt like you had to? And how did you feel about your work at that point in time?
When I was in school, you mean making the
Yeah,
tape?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, when he's like chipping out your VHSs and just getting your work out there.
I was actually really excited. I was just like so like it like I guess leaving a web design like where I was leaving a place where I knew I didn't want to be in that industry and
Huh.
being in a place where now I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go for it kind of thing. It was exciting. And also I got a lot of I guess good response
Mm-hmm.
from my demo reel. So I was just excited to see what kind of opportunities I could get from that. And yeah, it was just a fun time, and just being back at school, like the year I had was just fun with my
Mm.
peers and just doing something that I truly enjoyed doing. Like the demo reel was all like there was nobody saying you should do this or do that. It's just
Mm.
purely your own personal project kind of thing, and
Yeah.
it was just fun, and I guess I've kind of kept that feeling throughout my career where you really want to, as a creative person being, in this creative industry, I'm sure everyone wants to be in a place where they're able to have this freedom to create, do
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
something that, especially for me, just having the freedom to do something that I enjoy doing personally, and having the freedom to, yeah, do different things.
Mm. And just a quick question on when you chose graphic design and you end up in web design. Like, what was your thought process at the time? Like, what made you go down that route?
Yeah, that's a good question because you would think that from my work now, it's like more illustration based, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. But I've always liked design in the sense that I like graphics, I like color, I like composition,
Mm.
and so and actually with my work, I still try to kind of retain a little bit of that graphical element as well. Because I just really enjoy doing that. So, um, but yeah, I think that's kind of what steered me towards graphic design is just like
Right.
play with shapes, color, and that kind of thing. And in a way, I try to retain that with even
Yes.
the illustrative work and the mech designs that I do as well. So
I mean, I think with anything where like you've whatever skills you picked up along the way, whether it's deliberate skills that you're pursuing or random skills that you just picked up, maybe doing a random job or whatever, like they always seem to find a way, especially the ones that stick with you, a way to creep into whatever it is that you're kind of doing now. I mean, are there any things that you were kind of like taught? I guess I'm just going like super broad now. Anything from school, early days up until now, like, would you say that there's anything that kind of never was irrelevant, or has something, or either a little bit or everything, kind of just morphed its way into the workflow that you have now?
Uh, I think I've just picked up a lot of things here and there, and like you said, I think it has kind of morphed itself into just today. Like I definitely don't regret branching off into graphic design because
Hmm.
yeah, like it's so relevant for what I enjoy doing today. Um, but yeah, it's weird how yeah, like your life experiences as well kind of morphs into your current work.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I was able to like I guess travel here and there, and every time I just pick up influences from different
Mm.
countries and just a lot of your kind of world experiences, your life experience kind of translates into the art as well. So it's definitely everything helps.
Oh, for sure. And I think like a creative's mind, the whatever that part of the brain is, like it's always switched on when it comes to like not just inspiration, but just like influence. Like it just does something to the way you connect dots, and then how it translates into art. Um, what was there anything like I guess growing up that really led you towards the design path? Like, was it something that you were fascinated as a kid, or like I guess things that you had watched that really inspired you that said, "Hey, I want to be like this"? Because I've always had like a mixed bag of answers with this. Like for some, it's like they were born that way and had to be this, and for some, it was never even on their radar, and then they kind of just did it, and then it became their thing. How was it for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I guess you could say that I've always loved like especially mech design.
Hmm.
Like I've always I grew up watching Transformers, like
Yes, same.
the old Saturday morning cartoon original Transformers. Oh, I should say the American version because I think the
Right,
original
right.
was the
Yeah,
Japanese
yeah,
one. But I never watched the Japanese one. I watched the American one. But I was
same.
just obsessed with Transformers as a kid. And yeah, I think that has always stuck with me. And then as I got older, anime like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, all that just had huge influences. I'm sure a lot of your podcast previous podcasts, the artists have said like Akira and Ghost in the
Mm.
Shell as well. I think it's um, yeah, one of the huge anime influences. Neon Genesis, Evangelion as well. And then, yeah, I guess during high school, I was huge into comics as well. So a lot of comic book artists' influences. But I think, yeah, I've always kind of liked design, I guess. But
Hmm.
as a kid, you never really think of it as design. It's just whatever you like drawing, right? But
Exactly. Yes.
I think in a way, it was just more like just being able to create my own thing
Hmm.
rather than I guess copying someone else's design. I've always just want to just like
Yes.
create something that's mine. Um, so yeah, I think that kind of translated into concept design. I think yeah.
Ah, cool. I have not trying to compare myself to you at all, but I have the similar kind of thing where I do prefer just to do my own thing with my groove as opposed to force myself or do something in a different style. I've done that as a kid as well. Like any art class or whatever, where they said, "Hey, study this artist, do this thing." It's just like, oh, I don't want to. I want to do my own thing. Was that like the case for you in education as well? Like when they say
Yeah.
study this and study that, it was always a case of cool, but I want to kind of just do my thing.
Yeah, I think so. Like even if like I was influenced by specific artists,
Hmm.
I think I remember in high school, I saw Steve Platt. I guess he
It's
was
a
a
quick
comic book
search.
artist, but he did these just crazy. I guess in I was in the phase in high school where like musculature, like just I really liked
Right. Yes.
like it
Yes. Yes.
wasn't really even like robots. It was just like muscles with like
Yeah.
veins popping out, and I just love drawing those details. And
Yes.
Chris Platt, you just seeing his artwork is just no, not Chris, Steve. Chris,
Yeah. And I'm
was it
looking at it
Chris
now.
Platt?
It's yeah,
Chris Platt,
very
right?
cool and a lot of veins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prophet. I think he had a comic called Prophet. but I was just really into that style. I was just like, oh wow, like this is awesome, and I was just so into it and inspired. And then I would just do my own art, but not really specifically copying his characters, but just doing my own thing. But it ended up being like similar to his style, just because I was inspired
Mm,
by it, right? But I mean, that's kind of how I am today, where I'm inspired by so many artists, but I'm conscious of not copying them. Right?
hmm
It's really about maybe combining several influences into a style that maybe I can call my own. So
hmm Yeah, I mean, inspiration, I guess, influence is something that you cannot. It's impossible to be without, right? Like you kind of need it. It's like a fire can't be started without some kind of ignition. I don't believe my science isn't very good. And I think that's the same case with like art as well. Like you need something to build off of. And do you think you can have like an unhealthy relationship to influence and inspiration as well?
um, yes, definitely. I guess I'm sure a lot of people have mentioned this, but like with social media, all the cool stuff that's there, it can be intimidating. I think it
hmm
can be kind of stressful at times when you see the cool thing out there, and it's really a case of like FOMO, where you're just like I want to do that cool thing, I want to, and so there's a sense of like needing to catch up with the
Yes.
latest technology. And yeah, and I think that's where I get stressed out sometimes. It's just
hmm
like, yeah, well, I need to do this because like how am I gonna keep up with the industry if I don't do this? But at the same time, like it's really wanting to do it as well. So like for me personally,
mm
like I'm doing more 3D work, where previously it was a lot of like Photoshop and
mm
2D work. The aftermarket art book is all 2D, but I really want to step more into the 3D realm of things, and yeah, I'm learning a lot. And but at the same time, seeing all this new stuff out there is just like, oh wow, it's how do you do that? Like, and
mm.
like, but yeah, like YouTube's great. I pick up a lot of tips here and there. Learn squared, obviously, and and but yeah, like there's just a lot of stuff to know, and it's just really hard to juggle all that
Mm.
knowledge. And today's industry now, it's just so technically based, right? There's just a lot of
Yes.
stuff to learn as well, so much software to learn, so it's really hard to catch up.
Mm. And I think when you mention the FOMO aspect, is I don't think there's an artist out there who's listening and is generally who's not experienced that. Um, do you think that phenomenon is something that has always kind of been there, or have you noticed it more? I guess in more recent times because so much art is being posted, and I guess it's back to a social media kind of topic. Um, but because you mentioned that inspirations um, a few moments ago, like imagine if they came out now and someone's posting them, would you see that as inspiration or would you see that as kind of like into that FOMO bracket? So yeah, I guess like a simple question would be, do you think that is just part of the existence of being a creative, or do you think that is more so a consequence of the digital age that we're in?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, but I think with the digital age, I think it's just magnified, like
Mm-hmm.
just so much more, just because of the amount of stuff that you're exposed to like every day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just getting more and more every day. Like if you look back even 10 years ago, it's just not to the same magnitude as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So just different platforms, and the fact that it's easier to do these things than say
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago too, with the software evolving, and Unreal 5, all the technology there. It's just so easier for an individual to be doing something that a company should be doing 10 years ago, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's for someone that isn't learning all that, to them, I'm sure their eyes seeing this is like, wow, this is incredible.
Yes.
And so just the amount of stuff that we're able to do now is it's crazy with the tools that we have. So
Mm-hmm.
it does get stressful, especially if, say, in the industry, a company now starts to expect that you should be knowing how to do certain things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's if you were to ask the question like, could you get by with just 2D work as an artist? Maybe 10 years ago, you could, but I think now more companies, obviously, it depends on the company. I think
Sure.
more um, larger productions, I guess, say film companies, would probably expect there to be some form of kind of 3D workflow knowledge as well.
Mm-hmm. And from the time you, I guess, started putting your work out there and getting hired, um, what kind of work did you get straight away? Like, was it, did you have a few offers on the table, or um, did you kind of like fall into a different kind of company?
When I first got into the industry,
Yes.
yeah, strangely, oddly enough, my demo reel was an animation reel. Like the students could either focus on, say, like a turntable if you wanted to be a modeler, right? So what's the
Right.
best way to sell yourself? So you would modelers, the ones that wanted to get job as modelers, would create a character and have a turntable. For me, I decided I want to create just like a cool animated short, to just a short story, and it's this story of like a parody, a Street Fighter parody, where like a cow and a monster fight in Street Fighter, but
Cool.
then the cow turns into a robot, and then and then it's just this really silly kind of comical animated short. But so oddly enough, as I applied for the jobs, it was as an animator because
Mm,
I thought I just want to maybe get my foot in the door. So if I had to kind of go back and redo things, I think that would is something that I would have changed. Is like I would have
interesting.
preferred maybe getting into concept art right away rather
Mm-hmm.
than just getting my foot into the door as an animator, because the studio that I worked at, they already had their concept artists at the time, and I had expressed interest to kind of change from an animator to a concept artist, but
Right.
it
Right.
was difficult with the headcount. So I had to literally quit my job as an animator and then apply somewhere else as a concept artist. So it was kind of like a detour as well. So
Wow. And because, like you mentioned, I guess around that time, it wasn't a job that was, I guess, like well known. Like it wasn't a case of even probably, I guess, in job adverts, it wasn't like listed as like, hey, be a concept artist kind of thing that maybe it is today. Were you familiar with what concept art was at that point in time, or was that something that you kind of learned on the job?
yeah, by then, yeah, I was quite familiar with the fact that you could design things as a living. Yeah, like I
Hmm.
think if that industry had as it was starting to be established, I think the main turning point. I think a lot of people have mentioned this as well, where the Star Wars like art books that came out. Uh, this was, I think, the what is this? The prequels at that time. I think in the 90s, late mid to late 90s, where I think that was when a lot of artists, I guess, started to take notice of like concept art. It's
Mm,
like, I could do this for a living, rather than say being a Disney animator, which is an entirely different skill set. Um,
yes.
so yeah, at that time, I knew right then when I saw those kind of Star Wars art books, like I really wanted to do this for a living, just design things, not doing
Yes.
keyframes, drawing keyframes, but I wanted to just design things. And yeah, so I think that's kind of where the industry was, and by that time it was yeah, starting to get really well established. So
Mm. And what was kind of like the skill set required back then? Was it still like, I guess, was it pretty digital like Photoshop, I guess, or was it still a mix of like media in terms of like using markers and pens and papers, whatever, as well as digital, or was even some 3D being used back then?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the main like Photoshop had already been kind of quite well established. So um, uh, I don't know if you're familiar with the Siegen forums, and like before even CG Hub, CG Channel, or even ArtStation, there was these forums that I think some of the early digital art was being shared
Yeah.
on there. Like Craig Mullins was on there, and I think that's kind of where we're all kind of fascinated by the idea of creating digital art, even mimicking traditional art. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, to answer your question, like 2D was still kind of like the main platform, although digital was was becoming more commonplace, and but less of the 3D side of
Mm.
things for concept artists. So yeah, I think that the idea of knowing your fundamentals of design and perspective and all that was kind of like yeah,
Mm.
strongly valued, I guess.
And how did you find approaching concept art at that point in time? Did you feel like you had to develop new skills, or just the way you worked, or did you fit into it seamlessly based on obviously the skills that you learned doing animation?
I think it was, yeah, I think it's really adapting to knowing that I still had a lot to learn. And so,
Hmm.
like, I mean, with this career, that there's always something to learn, right? It's never
Hmm.
like you're in a place where you know everything, right? So, starting out as a concept artist, the one thing, knowing the fundamentals and constantly trying to improve on that, but also adapting to the project that you're working on and what they request. So starting out, um, I really wanted to kind of uh, fit in with the project and really kind of adapting more. And it wasn't until kind of later in my career where you kind of find, I guess you could say, your own voice,
Hmm.
and just really kind of decide to do the things that you want to do. But I think a lot of people starting off, they really are in wanting to learn everything. So being
Hmm.
adaptable to learn specific styles or whatnot was kind of important for me at the time. So
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's understandable. And like, what kind of like tasks did you have to do at the particular point in time? Like, was it a specific, like, now obviously you got environment, you got hard surface, you got props and characters and whatever. Was it almost everything, or did you have defined roles when you first started doing concept art?
yeah, I think I was lucky enough to be thrown like a whole bunch of different things. Like it wasn't like I specialized in
Mm.
anything, but um, and it all depended on the project too. I was working at Bioware, and at the time, very two very different projects were going at the time. It was Mass Effect and Dragon Age, and so I was on Dragon Age for a bit and doing just medieval themed concepts. And then shortly after, I was able to jump onto the Mass Effect 2, where it was completely sci-fi. And right then I knew it was just like, okay, yeah, this like I really, really prefer sci-fi. And like I
Wow.
don't know if I can ever do like medieval ever again, because I just want to stick with sci-fi themes. So I had just so much fun, and then shortly after I was started to do environments, weapons, and realized that I was better at that, I guess,
Mm.
than other character work or whatnot. So uh, I kind of gradually kind of stuck with that as well.
Cool. Now, what was it about the sci-fi side of things that really resonated and connected with you? Like, was it kind of like it just clicked, or was there something else that really made you? Like, I guess like maybe a better question is that did you know why you enjoyed the sci-fi stuff versus, I guess, the non-sci-fi stuff, or was it just like a thing that in you, like, you just thought, hey, this just works?
Yeah, I think like well, first of all, the project Mass Effect was highly influenced by Sid Mead, which is
Hmm.
my all time one of my favorite designers out there. So just seeing the work, his work, was just a huge inspiration. But to me, I think if there's something about like futuristic work that is a little bit, you have a little more freedom to design because it's the future. It hasn't
Hmm.
been created yet, right? Whereas if you were to do a medieval game, there are certain rules that are quite strict, right? Certain designs that are, a knight's armor, they have to. There's a very specific rules you have to follow in order to make it believable. So in a lot of ways it's a little more difficult, but in sci-fi design there are the rules of design to follow, but in a lot of ways there's a lot of freedom as well
Hmm.
to create you know new designs.
Oh, no, totally. Like some of the stuff that I tend to do is pretty much sci-fi also, and I totally agree with you in that sort of thing. Like it's obviously hard surface and sci-fi stuff. It's clearly cool, like when you look at it, and it's very popular as well. But I think the way you described it in terms of how this, like, you can still discover new things in that space, like that's, yeah, that's what clicks with me as well. Like that's the thing that really excites me the most, is almost like it's like archaeology, like you're trying to discover this thing that hasn't been discovered yet, and then you want to show it to everybody. um
Yeah,
and yeah, like also Mass Effect is, I didn't play the first one because I've never owned an Xbox. I think the first one's on an Xbox, but then I remember playing the second one and the third one. I fell in love with them, and visually, obviously, is amazing as well, and also just the gameplay. Like I really like the whole experience. And have you played Mass Effect? Like, do you play the things that you work on, or even like watch
yeah,
them?
yeah. Like I wouldn't call myself like a huge gamer,
Yeah.
purely just because it just eats up so much of your time.
Yes.
And with a lot of the art making stuff, it just takes a lot of time. So you kind of really have to set your priorities, right?
Hmm.
If I were retired, I would probably spend my days playing video games. But
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, I've played it enough to kind of get the taste of it. But yeah, like my favorites, number two and three.
Mm.
Much like I think a lot of people have said that as well. Actually, number one, I mean, that's where it really took off. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the first one was very popular.
Yeah, I just never experienced it. I just remember like when you played number two, it just kind of let you choose the ending of the first one, and then you kind of went with it.
Yeah.
Um, so do you find like that? Does it change your experience experiencing something as a finished product on something that you've actually worked on? Like, can you see it for what it is, or do you always see the behind the scenes stuff that you kind of worked on? Does that kind of just spin
Yeah.
around in your head whilst you're consuming
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, definitely. Like you can't unsee that. Be like working on it, you just in a lot of ways you're like I'm very critical of what I see as well. It's just like, oh yeah, that's not working.
Mm.
That wasn't how we did it, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, if you worked on a movie or something and then you see it, it's you see it from different perspective as well. So
Mm. And this is a topic that's come up in the last few episodes, organically. And like, what is your relationship as professionally and personally as well, like with your work once it's complete versus whilst you're doing it? Like, because like for my example, and like what the joy of making it and the energy goes into making it, but then once it's kind of finished and then put out there, it's almost like emptied and discarded. And there's like not much attachment to it afterwards. What is your relationship like with your own creations?
yeah, yeah, I'm the same way as well. Like, working on the aftermarket book, it was really kind of that same idea where my goal was to just create, kind of focus on this one piece and just have fun doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, post it online and whatnot. But after that, the next piece that I will work on, I would consciously kind of try to do something that wasn't the piece before. So just
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
trying to create like this broad range of designs, but really about, okay, that design that I just did is that, and now I move on and I do another one that's completely different. And so just really having fun with playing with different designs and shapes and stuff like that. So in that sense, yeah, it's really about um, not caring so much about making like worrying about whether or not it's perfect or not with the previous
Mm-hmm.
design. Is just moving on. And um and in a lot of ways my designs aren't exactly perfect, and nor do I want it to be. Like sometimes those kind of little imperfections, a little bit of sketchiness, I think I like that as well. So it was kind of
Yes.
intentional as well. So
I love it. I mean, like, would you have it any other way? Do you prefer to work that way, or would you have you ever thought about thinking, "Hey, I wish I felt a bit more attached to the things that I create, at least in terms of like when they're finished." If that makes sense.
um no, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it is what it is, and I see value in the, like, I guess the overall all-encompassing collection, you would say, right, of all
Yes.
the mechs that I do, rather than just one piece. Like I see the value of just everything as a whole, and I think that was always the intention. Making this book was that the whole world building aspect of things, where I wanted to create a universe with all of these
Mm-hmm.
in there. So it was really more of a reason, rather than just doing one piece to post on social media just because I like practicing. It was really giving it all a purpose. And so it was really setting a larger stage for them to exist in, and having fun doing it too, because creating a universe, you're allowed to step into all aspects of it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the architecture, the backstory of a character, the planets that they live on. So it's just it's a huge sandbox to play in. So yeah.
Oh, that amazing! And you can tell, like, with the stuff that you do, like you, at least from seeing it from the outside, like there is that enjoyment in every piece that you can tell whoever is creating this and the creative mind behind this, like it's more than just a cool thing, which I think I'm sure you'd agree as well. Like there's sometimes you can see stuff where it is cool, but it's almost like, I guess, soulless, to be critical, I guess. But there's definitely like a soul, and there's definitely like a personality behind the things that you make. And I'm a huge fan of your work and your style and the way you do things. Even like just the angles you pick, and just like you mentioned before, the colors and all that kind of stuff. Like it's almost it's super cool. When I say cool, it's just like the way I just distill a long ass way of like giving like just praise or whatever. So yeah, like I really find your work very, very cool. Where did the idea for Aftermarket come from, and when did it be kind of become this thing that it is now? And I guess the better question is, for people that are listening, what is Aftermarket?
Yeah. I think it all started off with, I guess, you've heard it with many artists, where it's a personal project,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a way to kind of um, flex your creative muscles, you would say, outside of your normal work environment. So, I'm sure we've all been there, where we're stuck in kind of like a mundane work situation, where maybe it's not as creatively fulfilling because you're just stuck in the production pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
and things need to be done, and it's understandable. It's not at the fault of any project per se, but it's more about the artist kind of wanting to do something that is their own. And and yeah, and I think that's how it all kind of started. I wanted to like uh in a production environment, you're kind of restricted to maybe doing designs in that particular style, in that rendering style. But at the time, I really wanted to find, I guess, something that I truly would be my style, or what something that I would enjoy doing, and it just kind of evolved into this kind of line art style, which goes back to my um, anime influences, and you know, back back before I started doing photo bashing for
Hmm.
you know speed painting or whatever. But yeah, liked I just wanted to combine all the aspects of things that I love to design, and see how it went. And I really enjoyed doing these mech designs in the line art style, playing with color and incorporating a lot of the graphic design inspirations that I enjoy doing as well. So
Hmm.
but I think very early on I wanted to create a book. So that was always the intention, and I wanted to just kind of start with one, then the other, and gradually kind of build this collection for this book. And yeah, and so yeah, so what is Aftermarket? It's the universe is based in the future, and I can give like a maybe like a quick backstory
Sure, please. Yeah.
where I guess in the future, the world, all the resources have been depleted. Um, I guess it speaks to a lot of relevance to today, right? Like the natural resources have been depleted. Humans are destroying themselves. Disease, famine, and all that. So it's just getting worse. So I guess the human race had just kind of discovered this technology, and which became the tipping point where they're able to upload their personalities into these cores. Very Ghost in the Shell, very like there's this is a very popular theme. So that's kind of an idea that I was playing with,
Hmm.
and but the spin on Aftermark is that it's a cyberpunk themed universe, but less serious than say a Blade Runner or
Right.
like a Ghost in the Shell. The intention was just more humorous, more colorful, more fun. You could say maybe Guardians of the Galaxy
Right.
kind of
Right.
vibe. Um, One of the movies that I've always been influenced by is Fifth Element as
Oh,
well.
love that. Yes.
Yeah, just the creativity in that movie as well. Just in that those designs, I think Jean Paul Gaultier designed some of the costumes as well, and it was just really colorful, really fun, and just little details here that I really enjoyed. So yeah, I guess that's kind of one of the inspirations for Aftermarket as well. And it was just the Aftermarket is just a reason to uh, be used as a platform to design like all things that I love doing, like weapon
Mm-hmm.
design, gear, vehicles, spaceships, all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, I guess those are the chapters in the book. So uh, in the world, as a human core, you would call it. Those are the kind of like the human scaled robots that your soul has been uploaded to. You'll be kind of navigating in these city districts or hubs. But if you want to venture off further into kind of unknown, more dangerous territories, you would have to upload into a heavy. And the heavies are just these larger mechs that are not humanoid based, or they don't have to be, and those are a lot of the mechs that you see on my social media uh, platform.
Wow.
So that's just a basic backstory, and there's still a lot to be fleshed out,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really just the universe for me to play around with all the hard surface stuff.
Amazing. I mean, like, so yeah, it's like, I guess, and I mean this in a respectful way, it's like it's almost like a creatively selfish endeavor, just to, like you said, put these creations, I guess, give them a home. Um, what's the status of the project now? Like, is it something that people can pick up and get, or is it like still in development? What's the story on that?
Right now it's just the book, but I'm working on um, making a video game. But
Nice.
it's it's really not like I'm gonna make a video game. It's really because that's hard to do.
Sure.
But really about setting up the backstory, setting up the pitch, and maybe like a vertical slice in order to see where that goes. Right. So I'm
Mm,
working on a vertical slice right now, and just having fun with the process, and in the
wow.
meantime, learning about game design and all the aspects that are
Yeah.
required in making a game. So like Unreal 5, all that goodness. So
And is this something that this endeavor, because I guess it would be easier to just maybe more, I don't know, I guess less stress, just to like just make art and just leave it there. Like you could have just easily done that, right? And just put it up on ArtStation or whatever and just let it live. But like to do it in a project and obviously now develop it to the level that you're doing it now, surely there's a lot of hard work and stress and almost like learning how to walk again with these things. Is that the case so far? And
yeah,
what's compelled you to kind of go through that?
yeah, absolutely. It's really I don't know. To me, I guess like many artists, I think it's about growth as well,
Mm,
and evolving. So I think I'm happy. I mean, I love like doing 2D art, and I think if I were to retire, I could draw every day. I think I'd be happy. But I think it's really about like I see these other things that I'm curious about and I want to
mm,
play with. So I think it's just exciting for me to just get in there and see what comes out. And I've always kind of wanted to see what my designs would feel like in 3D, moving, talking, and ultimately in a video game. So I think that'd be really cool. And it's just really about chasing the cool stuff, right? It's really about like just wanting to do it because it's fun, it's exciting.
yes. So it's like there's definitely it's more of a positive pursuit as opposed to like the negative side, right? Like it's like I guess is anything any aspect about it putting you off or making you feel like, oh, why did I even do this? Or is that not happening at all? And it's more a case of let's keep going further, let's keep going, like let's try and
Yeah,
realize this as much as possible.
yeah, I think there was, especially even when making the book, I think as the years dragged on, right, it took roughly 8 years to make the book. Having kids actually
Mm,
prolonged that time frame. So it was just this weight building on my shoulders, and it's just this added stress, right? And so I now that the book's done, I'm just like relieved that I was able to just get the book done.
mhm.
So anything else now is just gravy. So it's just like I
Okay.
want to do this game, and I'm having fun doing it, but I realized that the hurdles and the
Mm,
the amount of things that uh, amount of hurdles you need to overcome. So, but I'm just taking it one step at a time. I mean, it may or may not happen, but I'm just having fun doing it. I'm trying not to be like stressed out over it, right? So it's really just about enjoying the journey and just learning from the experience as well.
fascinating. That's like super inspiring to hear as well. Like it's that all these things can be balanced and can be done in a way where it's not gonna like kind of destroy you, if that makes sense. Not to put down on things, but I think like yeah, a lot of times we all fly close to the sun, and then our wings get clipped and we definitely fall crashing down face first. But it just shows that you can kind of like just put energy in, and you can get rewards from it as well. And I think it's interesting what you mentioned there about like to expand on that is like setting expectations and like I guess being realistic and also let things cook at their own pace. Is that right? Like, have you ever got to a situation where you get impatient about things, or do you give things time to breathe and cook as long as they need to?
Yeah, like especially with like a game project, like I've been very realistic on what is achievable as an individual versus like a huge team. So you really have to be honest with yourself on what is doable as an individual and versus like having a large team doing all the assets and everything. So
Hmm.
um, I'm kind of like setting, I guess, milestones for what is achievable at this stage, and then if we pass it and say, we have a team to create, a larger scope, then we push for more. But being realistic about what is achievable in a certain time, I think, is important to manage your stress level. And so
Hmm.
it's yeah.
And why would you say the book was the harder endeavor, or the one that was the most difficult? Because I guess, like, and give my naivety, but I would have thought a game thing, because there's, I guess, the technical things involved, and I guess like the amount of things that are moving just to get that happen would be the one that would be the most difficult one.
Yeah. I think, well, they're different. I think they were just two different goals, and
Hmm.
so um, uh, the art book was is necessary before the game, and so at that time that was kind of the large project, and the deadlines that come with that, and so but it was kind of like a passion project, for 8 years.
Hmm.
So um, I think this, at the seventh year and the eighth year, it was just the stress was building up. So,
Wow.
and before um, publishing this book, I had never ever done anything of this scale
Mm.
before. Like before, it was just really just do an art piece here and there, post on social media. So those are just kind of like little projects, I guess. But this one was much bigger, so I guess it's something that was stressful in that
Wow.
sense. But I mean, moving forward, I could say that like the book is there, and then now this next project will have its own set of stressful situations, I
Yes.
guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what would you do differently, if at all, if you were to do the book again? Like, I guess, what was the biggest thing that you learned whilst doing something? Because this with anything, when you do new, like, you have this kind of like hypothesis of what it's going to be like, and then these things that you'd never thought of come along, and you have to, I guess, learn something new to solve them or resolve them or whatever it might be. But yeah, like, if you were to do this all over again, at least with a book, would there be anything that you would do differently or approach things in a different way?
Um, in terms of logistics and like the business side of things and selling a product, I would probably look at options for like fulfillment and
Mm.
also because shipping, say, a product from Canada for people outside, especially in Europe, I think there's a lot of comments that the shipping costs is really expensive. And so in the business side of things, just knowing what the best options are in
Hmm.
terms of providing the best, I guess, more affordable books possible, and just knowing the I guess the rules in terms of shipping to different countries. I think I learned a lot in terms of setting up the store and stuff like that. So selling a product is, yeah, it's like another thing. So I was always
Ah,
kind of siloed into just creating art, right?
yes, yes.
But now this is the first time I'm actually selling a product, and there's definitely a lot to learn on that side of things.
And how have you found the business angle? Like, are you business minded generally? And I guess, like, it's something you have to develop and learn, but there's some people that just have it like in them, just to be like, I guess, handle that kind of space a lot better than others who probably look at that and just feel allergic and want to run a million miles away. How have you found the business side of things?
I've enjoyed it. Like I knew going in, like I wanted to do things myself because I just wanted to learn how to do it. And I think I think I'm pretty entrepreneurial, and
Hmm.
I enjoy the business side of things. I think it's definitely a skill to have, especially if running another business in the future. But it was a good learning experience, and but I've learned kind of that it's best sometimes. Time is really valuable, especially when you've got all these things that you're juggling. So being able
Mm.
to offload some of those work, like especially for fulfillment and all that, I think is valuable. So I've learned to kind of like delegate a lot of the stuff. I wanted to do stuff myself, even when it came down to like shipping some books out myself. I think um, I just wanted to do it just to see how other business
Mm.
entrepreneurs do it, and it was a good learning experience. But yeah, I would probably not do that again. I would probably just offload that to some other people. But
And so yeah, and like a question more like I guess on the financial side, and I guess not like more so behaviors around it as opposed to like just numbers, for example. Because I guess if you just write numbers without context, they're almost meaningless. But in terms of like the financial side of this and building this up and giving it the energy it needed, obviously would have come at a cost, obviously definitely in your time and obviously on your pocket as well. Um, is there anything you could, I guess, offer in terms of advice for people who are probably looking to do this, or just generally pointers? And I guess more so from your experience in general, like was the financial side of things as is what you expected, or were there a lot of like pitfalls or hidden costs or things like that that definitely threw up? Yeah, like I guess like how do you kind of handle the financial side of something
yeah,
like this?
yeah, like definitely, like it took a lot of planning, and like especially when I guess uh, deciding on getting a print run for these books. Um, you really don't know. I just really, and no one will know how many books to print. But the general idea was that the more books you print, the cheaper your base
Mm,
cost would be, right? So you finding that sweet spot of um, where what number to order, I think was an interesting experience.
hmm.
And then and then just planning up all the front loading costs of everything, right? Just how much it would cost to do the print run, the shipping, paying for duties for the books to be shipped from China where they're printed over to Canada. All those
Hmm.
cost factors, I think there was a lot to keep in mind. I launched a Kickstarter campaign as well, and they'll take a percentage. So figuring out what those costs are. So a lot of, I guess, a lot of accounting work, a lot
Hmm.
of calculating and seeing that the final numbers, I think, is
Hmm.
important to know. It's quite a lot of work,
Hmm.
and and I've have a lot more respect for online stores and people selling products now than I did
Hmm.
before. Just knowing how much work it is, and compared to say um, selling digital content, now I'm just thinking like digital content is just so much easier to do. You don't have to worry about shipping.
Yeah.
It's all that. So yeah, digital content, I think, is just especially for the artists. It's I
Mm.
think selling digital assets, maybe digital tutorials or all that stuff. I think it's a lot less stressful than a physical product.
And like with the, I guess, managing all that kind of stuff, is that something that again you took naturally to, or did you have to learn a lot of new things, or was a lot of teething problems in that regard?
Yeah, I had to learn just how to set it up, even like building the site, the website, like a Shopify site, figuring out the design of everything. But I, I knew going in that this is what I would have to do, and I didn't want anyone else to do it. Like I wanted to kind of learn and
Mm.
experience it for myself. Um, because I don't know, I think that's the kind of entrepreneurial side of me that I kind of enjoy, kind of getting my feet wet
Mhm.
and hands dirty in that aspect.
Amazing. And you mentioned a moment ago about obviously 8-year process. That's definitely like a long, long time. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners here who have just embarked on their own journeys yet and probably not even thinking 8 years ahead. And that's how long you took just to bring this to life. You also mentioned about living life, starting a family, and handling all that kind of stuff. Also, and as we spoke just before the call, life as parents and all of that good stuff and intense stuff as it likes to bring as well. Um, how did that affect you, and I guess even alter you as a creative person?
Yeah, that yeah, like I think having knowing that I had a deadline, like it just I like in the back of my mind, like just making this book, it was just like it needed to be done in my head. It just like every year that drags on, it was just going to be more weighing on my shoulders. So it's just like more stress, and in the in between there, I had well during the making of the book, two boys. So the first kid I had, it was incredibly stressful. I see it as like three jobs that I had to do. Right, my day job, then come home and do the art book, and then the kid. Right, so it was just too much to do in a short period of time, and just managing all that, it was incredibly stressful. I think I lost like 20 pounds
Oh wow.
during that period. But yeah, it was hard, and so it took a little longer to finish the book. But it really about learning my new life now with as a
Mhm.
parent. There's life before parenthood and then life after, and the
Definitely.
two completely different worlds. I would say I was more of a night person before I had my first kid. So I would even stay up to like 2, 3 in the morning working, and sometimes I work best late at night.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I did work best late at night, because now it's like completely opposite, right? It's just you wake up when the kids wake up, and our first kid was waking up at 5 in the morning, and so
Oof.
it was just crazy. It was yeah. But
Oh no,
then
yeah.
yeah, and then having the second one you just kind of adapt, I guess. It's hard, but in some ways you just adapt, and you
Hmm.
learn, and this is your new life. There's no going back anymore. This is the
Nope.
new life.
Yeah.
You have to accept it, and it is what it is, right? So
Yes. Yeah. Once the toothpaste out, you can't put it back in the tube. Um,
exactly.
and when you mentioned before about doing the book and then how the game was easier, like I was immediately thinking about the book as being like when you first have a child, like you cannot expect what's coming for you. You can read as much as you want, plan as much as you want until you've lived it. That's the only time you can really know. And then
Yeah.
when the second one comes, you kind of know what's coming. You kind of know what the plot's going to be like and the milestones and the pain that's going to come your way, especially when it comes to sleep and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it just reminded me of that. Um, how did it like alter you, or did it affect you in any particular way in terms of your approach to creativity? Because that's something that I found. It definitely not that dramatically, but it added a new ingredient to it, and I've never been the same since. What was it like for you?
Um it Well, in the sense of time, I think time, just managing my time, I think I mean, it hasn't really changed my I guess what I'm inspired by,
Hmm.
or the art that I make. I still am kind of enjoy, I guess, doing hard surface sci-fi, and but being efficient, I think, is
Mm.
really important for me right now, because that's the only way that I'm going to be able to do anything, is be absolutely good with my time. Since yeah, my kids, like, and also knowing how to balance your life as well. So knowing that at some point I have to shut off the computer,
Yes.
and turn that side of my life off, and then um, parenthood after that. So
Mhm.
parent time. So
Has that ever been a battle? balancing all those things, or was it just more so that it was you knew these are the things, these are the priorities, and they needed to be taken care of?
Yeah, like initially, especially when I was trying to finish the book, it was a battle because it's always in your head, right? Like, just I need to do this, I need to do this, right? And but then I have these responsibilities, and I can't neglect, taking care of the kids, right? So it really was a struggle at first, but now there's a bunch of things, right? Like now that they're a bit, like one's 5 and the other one's 2.5, like you're more accustomed to the routine now. You're kind of used to it,
Mm-hmm.
so it's in a way manageable and less stressful in that sense. Now that my book is done, I think it's just a little bit less stress on that side, so I think things are a bit better and more manageable. I think it's all about managing how much you do in a certain period of time. I think that was
Yes.
the stress, right? So there was just a lot of stuff going on that technically it was impossible with the short amount of time that I have. So I've been a lot better with just time management, I think,
Yes.
and not throwing too much on my plate because it has had an effect on stress levels. So it's
Mm.
and focusing on health, I think, is
Mm.
I guess the theme for this year as well. So
Did at any point did it either come across your mind or even used to consider thinking I need to sacrifice maybe the book or any kind of like sacrifice you need to make? Not your kids, obviously. Um, but just because of the amount of pressure and just the change in, I guess, demands of you.
yeah, I think for the book it was just a matter of, okay, this is my new reality with the kid, so it will be done when it's done, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just day to day just trying to any minute that I have just put work into it. But it just it like ultimately I said to myself, like, it needs to be done. Like it
Mm.
can't be not finished. I can't just give it up and not do it because of all the work that I had put into it already. So but yeah, I think it's just managing my time, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um, I'd love to pick your brains a little bit on like how you handled the stress and all that kind of stuff because they're just naturally you're going to develop a bit of stress. I guess being a parent, bringing anything new that's in addition to whatever you're doing now. Um, I went the opposite way. You lost 20 pounds. I definitely gained 20 pounds or more during that as well. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
like a change on your body and sleep habits and all of those nasty things that can crop up that you kind of realize that you were neglecting or anything like that. But yeah, I'd love to hear some of your war stories in terms of how stress affected you and how you managed it and
Yeah.
hopefully got the better of it.
Yeah, like I definitely, I think it taught me a lot about myself too, and what my triggers are in terms of
Mm,
like maybe losing patience, losing my temper. Yeah, that those kind of stressful moments are actually taught me a lot.
mm,
And so now I think I I like to think of myself as being very self-aware too. So just trying to be aware of what triggers me when I'm stressed out, and and so now it's really about balance. I think that's kind of like the key thing for my life right now is just realizing that there's the work aspect of things, but there's also the life aspect of things,
mm,
and just creating a healthy balance. And so with that comes like eating healthy and exercise and all that, and kind of like taking care of the mental and the physical side of things so that you can kind of have a long life, a long career, and also be more creative as well. So
mm.
it's um, yeah, all that stuff. It's just the balance of things.
And are there any particular things, at least on like perhaps on the mindfulness side of things or healthy habits that you have developed over time that are almost like critical for you to be able to stay healthy and maintain that balance that you do?
For me, I think working out has always been important for me because I've always known that yeah, it's just important for everything, right? For
Mm,
and just kind of even for being creative, I think just having a routine. So right now, I work from home,
mhm,
and so I've been able to kind of create my own routine where I set aside some time in the day to work out. I've been more careful about my diet as well. And so I think all those things, and even like, although I'm not that good at it, but I'm been trying to meditate as well. I mean, I think that kind of would help. Um, but yeah, I think there's just a lot of like podcasts out there that I think that kind of teach mindfulness,
mm.
and uh, just daily life habits that I think have helped me out as well. So like I'll just try to incorporate some that would help me, like even like sleeping on time as well,
Mm.
creating those routine. Um, yeah, I mean it may sound boring, but I think routine is having a good routine. I think is helpful to be productive as well. But yeah, not that exciting, but
Oh no, dude. I think like I mean, I guess it's just one of those things where if it's something that you're not finding exciting, it will definitely creep up on you. And it's interesting how weirdly is it's not like a, I guess, a glamorous topic, these kind of things, but when you think about the benefits you can get, it should be like one of the things most people should even be hunting for because it unlocks so many things within you and for you, right?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a strange one, and I have a very weird relationship with all of those things where like I can get into these great flows and it goes well, and then it can just fall apart, fall off the wagon, and things just go out of hand, and I got to kind of rein it back in again. And it's just weird. But I guess it's more down to understanding your own kind of like, I guess, limits as well, and what you are capable of and not capable of, and all that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, I think a lot of stuff you mentioned there, like it's if anyone isn't doing it, um, whether you think it's not for you or not, I promise you, just one point down the line, it's going to become something that's going to be like almost a priority thing for you. Um,
Yeah, like
yeah.
even like if we're talking about like artists today, when you think about it, I don't know if everyone else, like there are those that just stick with their 9 to 5
Mm,
where they're working in a company and doing that, and then they have their own lives, and I think that's perfectly healthy lifestyle. But
yes.
like the work that I do is kind of like the side thing outside of my work,
Mm,
so it's like added things to do, and that's why we talk about productivity and being
mm,
efficient, is because it is something extra on top of your day job. And so for those interested in being efficient, I think those are some things to think about, right, in terms of setting routines and a
mm,
healthy habits in order for you to be productive. I think so. I think if those that just stick with their 9 to 5, I think they will have a lot more time on their hands to
mhm.
really kind of be less stressed out and live live a more enjoyable life. But I think the stress comes from just wanting to do so much on the side, right? All this, all
Yes.
these extra
Yes.
things.
But it sounds like you definitely, at least if not trying to, have found a nice flow and a balance to be able to do this. And I've taken a lot away from our conversation today, just from all the things that you've uncovered and explained and how you're doing them. In terms of like, I guess like the future for yourself and aftermarket, like what is the plan? Like what's next with this particular thing? Like, is this your almost day to day now, or is it still alongside client work and all that other stuff involved? Like, what's your plan for your, I guess, art life?
Yeah, I think it's just juggling that, because this will is my passion project and will be for a long time. So like I mentioned, working on the game side of things and planning for that, I think is kind of like an ongoing thing. But Possibly, seeing the time that I have. The problem that I have is just wanting to just do different things and
Mm,
like juggling all that. So, but I've always kind of toyed around with the idea of maybe publishing like another book, maybe a book of sketches that would be wouldn't take so long to do, not 8 years, but just something that I normally do anyways is just I sketch a lot on the iPad.
mhm,
So
mhm,
maybe putting together a book of sketches could be a next project. But again, I have just these too many projects to juggle, so it's just setting priorities as well. So it's yeah, and again, balance, just having a balanced life as a parent as well. So I think that's kind of my priority these days.
Brian, sounds amazing. And fortunately, we've run out of time. I had so many more questions to ask you, so we should definitely do this again.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, thanks for jumping on. And any final words from yourself to listeners before we head off?
Um, I guess one topic that we didn't talk about, I guess everyone's talking about is AI, right? And like me, along with a lot of artists, I think are kind of like stressed out over the
Mhm,
situation of like AI art, and how do you feel? How does one feel about that? And to me, like yeah, like I feel like I'm stuck in a position where uh, do you adapt? Is it like just this train that is gonna just keep on going,
mhm,
and either you adapt or you die, kind of thing? So like for me, I don't like the situation, but I'm trying my best to kind of be impartial to it and just learn the tools, and just seeing what it does. But I guess if there's anything I could leave to the audience, just uh, don't don't be too stressed out over it, and just keep on creating. I think I don't, if anything, I think that's why we get into this industry, is because we enjoy, creating, and getting, hands on, and doing the art rather than having a machine do it. So just keep on enjoying what you're doing. I think, at least for now.
dude, yeah, amazingly put. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people. It is one of those where on one day you can be like, yeah, I don't care. Then the other day think like this amazing like, this asteroid that's about to destroy everything, and it kind of flaps and changes. But I think how you explain that is was well put. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. And again, yeah, anytime you want to chat again, I'd love to do this. This was fun.
Oh no, for sure. And aftermarket, where can people grab that?
It's at aftermarketstore.com. That's the only place where you can get the book. Unfortunately, it's a little expensive in maybe in Europe or other countries, but that those are the best rates that we have out of Canada. Unfortunately, I apologize in advance.
Nah, sure. And there's definitely going to be links attached to the episode, so you can tap that and grab the aftermarket.
Awesome, thanks.
A huge thanks to Brian for jumping on. You can grab Aftermarket now and also see what Brian is up to by hitting the links. Then, head over to learnsquare.com and start your own creative empire by taking our courses. Remember, the first lessons are free. I've been your host, Aaron Danda. Till next time.